Hello and welcome to another eCom Ops podcast. Today I'm talking to Aron from Data Clymer, and wow, this is such a huge tool. We're talking about data warehousing. So Aron, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Tell us a bit more about yourself. How did you came into the topic of data warehousing?
Oh yeah, it was a long, winding route for me. I've just been in high tech for 25 years, and I don't know, about halfway through that career, I just started to specialize in data. I got my MBA, and it was all focused on data, like data science, data analytics. Realized I really enjoyed data specifically, and just went into that field. I went to Salesforce and built the data team there for about 7 years, and really developed a methodology that I like to continue to use today. And I developed sort of an approach to data warehousing to make sure that data is used and democratized, and the full value is reached. So that's what I do today, and I love it.
And that's cool. So with Data Clymer, you have a high personalized approach, so a very high level of service, and you have solutions for marketing, for sports and entertainment, for e-commerce and retail, financial, health. So there's a lot of topics on your website. Tell me a bit more about your product, what it is all about.
Yeah, so actually, we're not a product company, so we're pure services. And when I started this about 6 years ago, my vision was to build what I would call a full data stack engineering team. So we do data engineering specifically. It's all around data warehousing use cases in a lot of the exciting companies and verticals that you just mentioned. We are at some of the biggest sports teams in the world, major league teams in the US, the NFL, Major League Baseball. And we're also in a lot of e-commerce, as you pointed out, and some other industries as well. The reason that kind of works is actually because a lot of the best practices and design patterns that we use when we approach data and how do you manipulate data, manage it, store it, and make it available for non-technical end users is very similar. Those patterns are very similar across verticals. It's more, the only difference is the actual data sets and the kind of questions being asked.
Mm-hmm. And how is your approach on that? So how do you go into a data warehousing project?
Yeah, I should have mentioned the other piece of what Data Clymer does is all next-gen approach. Modern cloud data warehousing is our approach. So it's all going to be cloud, cutting-edge, best-in-class tools that we will use. So we'll put together a solution. And, for better or for worse right now in the industry, there's no one vendor that provides everything you need. In fact, there's a lot of vendors you have to put together for a complete solution. So, there's a best-in-class company that builds data pipelines to bring data from all of your SaaS applications or other places into a central data warehouse. There's the data warehouse itself, which is another vendor. Then there's the business intelligence tool. That's another vendor. There's a lot of marketing and e-commerce specific vendors that we also use to put together a complete solution. So you do have to work with a lot of different companies, and that's just because there's a ton of innovation going on right now. And I love it. I mean, we love it because it's so much easier than it was 5 years ago to put together these solutions, and customers can, realize value very quickly. And so it's fun for us, and it's great for our clients.
What are the big pain points? So where are the companies always struggling when it comes to combining data?
What I would say is if you talk to a lot of vendors specifically about how long it takes to spin up a data system or a full data stack or a cloud data stack or a data platform, whatever the terminology is, to spin that up, you'll hear things like you could spin that up in an hour, you can spin it up in a day, you can have data flowing and have your system running. And that's true, which is the fun part is, yes, you can spin the technology up very quickly because it's all cloud-based. However, using raw data and getting just data into your system is almost impossible. So it doesn't end there. There's months and months of work really to get a system that's working really, really well for you. And that's because raw data is again, it's very messy. It's very hard to understand. It's actually really hard to analyze and use. So there's some data modeling that needs to go into that. You need to usually clean data. You need to structure it so it's easy to analyze and easy to understand for non-technical end users. So that's really the trick. And there's a lot of design patterns in there that make that a lot better. And that's kind of where our expertise is how do you get that raw data and make it into something that's really useful and up to date and fast and trustworthy and all of those things that you want to build into your data system.
Yeah, this is something I can completely underline. I mean, I see it when we're talking with clients about just Google Analytics. Yeah, I mean, it's just the data of the visitors on your website and how they interact with your website. But most of the users having Google Analytics enabled is having Google Analytics enabled. They do not even check the data because they do not know what to look at or how to track specific kind of data. And I think this is very important that if you have the possibility to have data, to treat it the right way and understand what to read out of this data. And I think that's the most complex part. How can you create a strong data culture in an organization?
Yeah, that's actually even the more difficult part. It's the non-technical approaches to these things, right? And actually, we started out at Data Clymer really focusing on that data culture change piece. But anytime you're talking about data culture and changing behavior, that's a multi-year process. And that's just not a fast process. So it takes a lot of willpower, a lot of devotion to the strategy, to time, to effort. But what you do, at the end of the day, is you want to build your business processes around the data, right? So you want to bring in your data into day-to-day business processes for everybody in the company, ideally. I'll give you a quick example. One company, I was head of data at Pop Sugar before I started Data Clymer, a company in San Francisco. And there was about 300 people we democratized all the data to, but there was one team, a PR team. They needed to put out stories every day or as often as they could. But they were only doing it once every 2 weeks because they had to ask the data team to do an analysis to get an answer, to get sort of a story they could put out about what's going on in this case in the fashion world. It was very slow. So once we gave them the data, put it in front of their, at their fingertips, they could put out a story every day with just about an hour of training, right? And so this is a small group of people you never maybe would have thought would use data directly, doing press releases. But they loved it, and they were, 10x productivity and a huge impact on the outcome for the company because of that. So, yeah, it's you get it into the daily process again. For our product company, we want product managers to use it every day or every time they come to a meeting. Bring your data to your meeting, show us why you want to do something. In e-commerce, that's absolutely the case. Bring your dashboard to your daily or weekly, staff meeting or your strategy meeting, your marketing. You got to bring the data to the process and make sure it's part of your everyday routine.
What do you think are the major points, especially in e-commerce, that you should have measured and monitored in the data warehouse? What are the most important things?
Yeah, there's so many, and what I believe is, I mean. The standard metrics are absolutely still important, right? Your return on marketing, your conversion rates, your lifetime value of a customer, finding those segments, right, that you really want to focus on. Those are all important. What I think is even more important in a way is the sort of the analysis, the ad hoc analysis to find patterns and important patterns in your customer base, in your product. So you can really jump on those and jump on them quickly, right? And that's one of the hardest things to do in data is actually to just analyze data ad hoc. You can develop a nice dashboard and a nice report with all of your KPIs. But often you'll get an answer even for your KPI, like, all of a sudden some product takes off, right? Why did it take off? Why is it selling so well? Or whatever it is, if you have a loyalty program, it could be that, your loyalty program is really working well in this specific area. So the next question is, well, why? Well, if you're going to answer those questions, you need to be able to dive into the details and start understanding that. Mm-hmm. And so there's some very specific ways that we would approach data to make that easy. But just at a very high level, again, the idea is often when you're running your business, your e-commerce business, you're often running 10, 20, maybe even 30 plus applications to run your company, right? And so all that data is siloed, your whole company is basically data siloed in all these different applications. So getting it all into one place and then being able to ad hoc analyze that data and just ask any question you want. That's the beauty of kind of what a data warehouse can do for you.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I really like that idea that everything is connected. Especially in e-commerce. So this podcast is mostly for e-commerce people. So what do you think are the most common pain points for e-commerce businesses, which they encounter these days?
I don't know if I can talk to the specific pain points. I mean, because we focus more on the and how to make sure that data is available and how to use the data. And we've had so many different e-commerce, but also non-e-commerce clients. So, I think, again, to me, it comes down to the pain points of just not really having full visibility into your business, into your both, again, your product and your customer. I think the pain points there are some of the biggest ones, right? Is that you're flying blind in a lot of cases, or it's very, very difficult. It could take days to weeks to answer a question because you got to go to 5 different systems to try to put the data together. And often what that means is you're downloading all that data into a spreadsheet and doing the merging of the data yourself, right?
The best data warehouse in the world is Excel.
That's right. And it's still very used very heavily. One of our partners actually has a business intelligence tool that's called Sigma Computing, and it has a spreadsheet interface. So that they're actually playing on the idea that there's so many people out there that use Excel and use spreadsheets. So if you understand a spreadsheet and you understand how to use a spreadsheet, if you have the same interface for a business intelligence tool that gives you access to billions of rows of data instead of hundreds of thousands of rows of data in your Excel spreadsheet, it's easy to use. So anyway, it's kind of funny that it's true that, we're not getting away from spreadsheets, or at least the interface of the spreadsheet, for a long time. But it takes a long time when you have to use an actual, Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, especially if you need to always update the data, maybe even manually, or export and combine it and what else. So this is for sure a big topic, and I think this is actually maybe even one of the pain points in e-commerce, that you have a store, you have a CRM, you have a newsletter tool, you have maybe an ERP software, a shipping provider, a warehousing, you have suppliers, and everyone has different kind of data presentation, imports, exports, features, and what else there is, but there is no holistic view on just everything, and you can not do cross analysis and understand what happens in your business, or you just log into every tool and do a report there specifically for that. And I think this is one of the pain points where e-commerce store owners need solutions to get the right answers. Do I have the right products? Do I have the right targeting group? And I think there is a lot to do.
I was going to say, on top of that, I mean, the analytics capabilities in all of these applications is usually pretty subpar. It's not great, and there's a lot of things you want to do even in there that is really hard to do. Plus, you've got to learn 20 different analytical tools to be able to get an answer. So having a single place to go and knowing how to use that tool, and knowing you can look at the very most granular data. I mean, you can look at every order item, and the 200 different fields of data you're tracking about that item, right? And instantaneously. So that's the kind of power that I like to see. Yeah,
absolutely. This is really a great thing. Did some trends change over the past 2 years? I mean, how do you see what's happening on the market?
Yeah, this is something I'm just extraordinarily excited about. Again, in our world of the data side of the coin here. What's most exciting is just the technology and what it allows the end users to do here. So specifically in e-commerce, you're generating there's a lot of data, right? You're generating a lot of data. Even if you're just a small mid-sized company, you could easily be having hundreds of millions or even billions of rows of data in your data set in a very short amount of time. And even just 5-6 years ago, it was hard to query that data. It was just there was a lot of data. It was too much. And so everything was really slow. But There's evolved a data modeling approach that we use a lot called activity stream, and it's a way to actually put, again, you could put 10 billion rows into a table. It's structured, it's only about 15 columns, but imagine having every single interaction with your customer or prospect in a single table. So you've got, before they're a customer, when they're a prospect, all your marketing is in there, email marketing, your paid ads, what other touch points you have with your prospect are in there. So it's basically a log of everything that's ever happened with a prospect and a customer. So all your purchases, any kind of interactions you have with a customer down the road, all in a single log. So you can imagine if you have pretty much all of your data about your customers in one place, you can ask any question, right? You can ask questions like really interesting ones, right? Like, what are the top 2 things that our top buyers do before they purchase? Or what are the top 4 things they do on the website, that keeps them loyal? So you can ask any question, these ad hoc questions. And there's tools out there we use that will help you get those answers without having to know SQL, without having to know how to query data technically, right? You can just ask the business question and get an answer. And that's what I'm most excited about, because believe me, when I see the eyes light up, the faces light up of people that actually do this and get to see that they can ask any question, it's incredible. Because again, to get that answer before they had this would have taken days to weeks, and now it takes minutes to get an answer.
Yeah, this is really very cool to hear that these solutions are out there. I often hear different terms for what we are talking about. Maybe we should define that, or you can help us to better understand it. If we talk about data warehousing, is it the same as if we talk about big data, or is there a difference?
Well, the term big data just does mean a lot of data, and again, that's relative. That's kind of subjective. It's relative to what you're used to. So I think the way I would say describe it is a data warehouse is a very specific kind of database, by the way. So first of all, it's a warehouse. A warehouse is designed for analytics. So it's designed to put a lot of data into these big tables and then to be able to query it fast. So you definitely would not want to use a standard database for that. You don't want to use Microsoft SQL Server or MySQL or
for sure not
Postgres. All these databases, those are designed for applications.
Yeah.
And they're great. They're great for transactions,
Absolutely.
But they're not great for scanning billions of rows of data or millions of rows and then getting a quick answer. So a data warehouse is a specific kind of database meant for analytics, and so that's necessary. Getting data in there and centralizing it in one place is a huge design pattern. So that's that. Usually the terms are ETL, or ELT, which stands for extract, transform, and load, or extract, load, and transform. All that means is getting data from all your sources into a central data warehouse. So building a pipeline of data in, and then you model it. So data modeling is taking the raw data, like I mentioned at the beginning, and turning it into something that's easy to use and easy to understand. And then doing your analytics is usually the next step. But often what we're doing these days is going a step further, and we're doing what we call reverse ETL. So we're taking the data that's now been curated and cleaned and synthesized in your data warehouse. Let's say like a customer master record. It has everything you want to know about your customer in one record, one row essentially. Now you can push that data back out into your systems. So your systems have become smarter. So if you have a CRM like Salesforce or HubSpot, you can push that data back into there, right? So you have the best record you can and all the information about that customer in your operational system. It's also called operational analytics, actually, a lot of times, because you're really taking the data and operationalizing it. Therefore, you can take more action on it. It's more valuable, all of that. And then just to take this a little bit step further in terms of where the market's going and what we see happening is that the data warehouse then is becoming more and more important as an operational tool, not just analytics, not just internal analytics, not just backward looking sort of analytics, but operational tool. You can also do a ton of predictive modeling and data science and machine learning, in there to sort of predict the future and operationalize that data. So there's a ton of stuff you can do. And then the final thing that's happening is there's actually whole applications that are now being built just on the data warehouse. and specifically for e-commerce, marketing applications that are running right on top of the customer master data in your warehouse, not off your CRM, not somewhere else, because the warehouse is the only place you have the 360-degree view of the customer. And so there's a lot of applications being built where the data warehouse is the engine for that application. So you don't have to even move data around anymore when you do that. So it's kind of exciting to see the warehouse becoming front and center when it comes to operations.
Yeah, I can also agree to that, because we see it at SyncSpider, where we do such integrations and also data warehousing a bit. People are using it a lot for data aggregation for different product channels. So as usual, when you are a web store owner, you typically have not only one source of data or one supplier where you get the data from. You have different ones, and you need to aggregate them before and enrich the data before you send it to the e-commerce store, because often you have specific kind of required fields in your e-commerce outlet that are not filled when you are getting data from the supplier, and therefore you need to enrich data. And of course, this requires either a PIM, and a lot of e-commerce owners do not have a PIM because it's too much of work. If you're just, let's say, a reseller, and there needs to be, let's call it small data warehouses, where they can enrich and combine and aggregate data to prepare it for the e-commerce channels. And this is a very common thing that we've seen in the last couple of months, growing more and more important. Because of a lot of people started to be online because of Corona, running a business as a small business as well online, and they need such things. So it's really curious to understand that this is something that you also confirm as a valid situation on the market at the moment.
Let me say one thing about that, because I'm glad you brought up enrichment, because you're right, that's another huge design pattern, is enriching all your data with other data you didn't have. A simple example is demographics, or like you said, the firmographics around your customers. But again, the technology, I get excited about the technical solutions to that. So here's another thing that the cloud data warehousing has brought that the world never had before, and it was this ability for different data warehouses to share data with each other without moving the data. So this is incredible. There's a company, for instance, data warehousing solution or vendor, Snowflake. I'm sure most of your listeners have heard Snowflake if they've been at all looking at data warehousing. They have a data sharing feature, and they use that to provide data enrichment services. So for instance, let's say you have a table, and you want to, you have all of your customer IDs in there, or you have email addresses or names or whatever you have that identifies your customer. You can purchase a enrichment data set. So from the Snowflake marketplace, from another vendor that provides that, and you can literally join that data into your own, so enrich it. But that data really never left the other vendor's data warehouse. And your end users don't really even have to know that. They see it in their warehouse as if it's in their warehouse, because it's all virtual. So it's all logical. It doesn't have to be physically in the same place. So it's basically instantaneous, right? You don't have to move petabytes of data. You just flip a switch, and now it's available to you in your data warehouse. So that's kind of innovation that is really expediting the ability to enrich your data, do data warehousing, and really just get a ton of value out of this.
Yeah, this sounds very interesting. And I am so impressed about the speed of so much data being available at a finger snip. And this is really very powerful. How important is automation processes to bring everything together for businesses nowadays?
Yeah, that's another huge thing. And that's half the reason that you would set up a data warehouse in the first place, is you definitely want to automate as much as possible, right? Especially, every team is stretched for resources, no matter what the size of your company. And so you need to be able to automate all of your data. So anything that's repetitive, right? You want to automate it. And there's plenty of really nice tools out there these days. dbt is a huge one for doing data manipulation. Matillion is another one we use a lot. That has a graphical interface. You don't even have to write code, and you can, bring this data in. You can manipulate it any way you want, but automating that is essential, because you'll never get out of the operational, hell if you don't automate everything you can,
Yeah.
especially in data, right? You want all your resources to be analyzing that data, to be doing something with it, activating it, actioning it, not bringing it in, not merging it with other data. That can be automated. So automation is huge, and there's a lot of it. I mean, when you have a operational, running data warehouse, you've got 30, 50, 100 data pipelines. You've got, a lot of data manipulation going on, and it all has to happen as fast as possible in an automated way so that you have as near, real-time data as you can in your data warehouse. And it's always fresh. And then again, trusted. There's no way you can test and validate all your data manually, right? You really need to automate a lot of the testing and everything that goes into a trusted data set.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. It was really very valuable. Let me ask you the last question for the day. Who has taught you the most about data analytics in your career?
Oh, that's a really good question. I have learned from, I've had just some really great bosses, I would say, back in my Salesforce days, had a couple of great people who had run data systems for large companies themselves in the past. So I learned a lot from their experiences. They were, had already been 40 years into their career and had built massive data systems. And so had dealt with every single thing you need to deal with, not just the data and everything we talked about, but governance, security, on and on and on. There's a lot of things to understand. So I'd say just from my leaders and the bosses I've had in the past.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aron. Really was a great interview. And guys, get a data warehouse and get a specialist to help you get the right data into your data warehouse, combine it, analyze it, and understand what the data tells you. I think this is what we learned today. Data is not just having the data. I mean, we have the data in the systems, but we need to understand and learn how to really use the informations that we can gather from different channels about our customers, about our products, about the possibilities to increase the sales and further grow the company. We need to have a better understanding. And I think this is something that we all can learn from people like Aron, who can help us to build such great data analytics. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a great day.
If you liked it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and listen up for the next podcast episode. Bye-bye.
And that's it for this episode of the eCom Ops Podcast. If you enjoyed listening and would like us to find and interview more e-commerce operations experts, please search for eCom Ops Podcast in your favorite podcast listening app, and then subscribe, rate, and review. Until next time.